happy Motivation Monday. If you're new to my channel, my name is Bree Coles and I do motivational videos every other Monday as well as some family vlogs mixed in on my channel. Today's video is going to be, I'm going to be sharing 4 autumn recipes, and these are recipes that they give me all the warm and cozy feelings of this time of year, and they have all of the wonderful spices and flavors that fall has to offer. So we've got pumpkin and butternut squash and apple in there, cinnamon, and all of those spices and deliciousness. So I hope that you enjoy these recipes. I'm going to be making 2 today and then 2 tomorrow, and I'll put all of those in this vlog. Let me know if you try any of these recipes, and as always, I hope that this brings some motivation to the start of your week. The first recipe that we're going to be making is butternut squash soup, and for this recipe you do need some sort of instant pot or pressure cooker. I went ahead and halved this recipe because it does make 3 quarts the way that it's set up, which is just a lot because honestly I'm the only one in my house that eats butternut squash soup, and as much as I love it, I don't think that I would finish 3 quarts in a reasonable amount of time. So you start off by taking an onion, or half an onion if you're going to half it. I'm just going to give the measurements for what the actual recipe calls for, and then you can half it as well if you want to. So you're going to chop up 1 medium onion, and it calls for a yellow onion, but I had a white one, and so that's what I used. And then you're also going to do a large Granny Smith apple, and you want to cut this up as well. It doesn't really matter how you cut it up because it's all going to get blended together in the end. So I just kind of chopped it up the best I could and diced it a little bit. Soup is one of my favorite staples of the fall season, and butternut squash just has the perfect flavor for this time of year. And I also find that butternut squash soup is so easy to make. Ever since last year when I discovered that you can buy the pre-cut butternut squash, that was just life-changing for me because I used to just really struggle to cut the full butternut squash. I don't know why that was so hard for me, but if anybody else struggles with that, let me know. Anyways, once you have all of that cut up, you're going to also want to roast some pumpkin seeds. And I just bought a bag of salted pumpkin seeds, and I roasted them at, I believe, 450 degrees, and I think it took maybe 15 to 20 minutes. I just kept kind of checking on them to see when they were done. So once your onion and your apple are chopped up and your pumpkin seeds are in the oven, you can go ahead and set your Instant Pot or pressure cooker to the either medium-high or high saute setting. And you're going to want to heat 2 tablespoons of butter or olive oil or whatever you want to use, and then you're just going to put in your apple and your onion. And the recipe also actually calls for fresh sage leaves, but I totally forgot to add those in. But once your onion is kind of looking a little translucent, then you're going to add in your butternut squash. I know how hard it can be to follow along with a recipe from a video, and sometimes I forget to say exactly how much I'm adding of things, so I will have the actual recipe linked in the description box below for all of the recipes that I'm showing in this video, so you can go ahead and just click that instead of having to listen to my jumbled brain right now telling you all the ingredients. But here I'm adding vegetable broth and then salt and pepper. Once that's all mixed together, you're going to want to cook it under high pressure for 10 minutes. And keep in mind that it also does take about 15 minutes for the pressure cooker to come up to pressure usually. So you have about 25 minutes to get other things done while this is cooking. And then it will look like this when it's done. Everything will be kind of mushy and all nice and warm and blended together. And then you're going to stir in 1/3 cup of heavy cream, or you can use coconut milk as a good dairy-free alternative, and it really doesn't make it taste like coconut if that's something that you're worried about. So then you can blend this directly in your pot if you have a little handheld blender, but I just like to dump it in my blender because it all fits in there when you half the recipe, and then you blend it all up and once it's smooth, it's good to go. Once it's ready to serve, you can just pour it in your bowl and then drizzle some cream over the top of it, or coconut milk if you're using that, and then you can sprinkle some of your toasted pumpkin seeds on there. And the pumpkin seeds just add the perfect little crunch to this soup. I really, really like it. Okay, this next recipe is definitely the easiest one that I'm going to show you today, but it also might be my absolute favorite. I don't know if it's because it takes me like 10 minutes to prepare this recipe or what that makes it taste so good, but I really love this one. And it's perfect as just like an easy lunch if you need something like that, or you can even prep it ahead of time and grab it on the go if you need to. But this is the apple bacon Gouda grilled cheese. And obviously you're going to need some apples in it, and so I used Honeycrisp apples, and that is what the recipe I found calls for, but I think that you could really use any apples you want. And I prepared my bacon ahead of time, and then I had just stored it in the fridge so that it was ready for this whenever I needed to make these. So you're going to want to butter one side of your bread, and then you'll add a slice of Gouda cheese. The recipe calls for apple smoked Gouda, which sounds absolutely delicious, but I was not able to find that at my store, so I just used regular smoked Gouda. And then you're going to add your Honeycrisp apple slices, which I just tried to make these as thin as I could. I don't think it really matters exactly how you cut them up. And then you'll add another slice of Gouda cheese, and then some bacon, another slice of Gouda cheese, and then you top it with another slice of bread. So again, super quick and easy, probably the easiest recipe that I will ever show you on this channel, but the apple just added the perfect little sweetness to this and crunch, and I can't wait to make this again. The next recipe I'll be sharing is called apple cider chicken, and this was a completely new recipe to me. I did not make this last year, so this was my first time ever making it. So first you're going to want to make your marinade, and you can make this a day before you want to make the apple cider chicken, or you can even just put it in the fridge for an hour before you want to make it. Totally up to you and whatever works with your time schedule. But you're going to do 3/4 of a cup of apple cider, 1/4 cup of olive oil, 4 cloves of garlic minced, and I just used the easy little pre-minced garlic for this because I was in a hurry, paprika, salt, onion powder, rosemary, black pepper, and just a little pinch of allspice. You're going to mix all of that up, and then you'll add your chicken to the marinade, and the recipe calls for 8 pieces of bone-in chicken thighs and legs. In hindsight, I feel like I should have used either smaller thighs or just a little bit less chicken because of the dish that I used, but I'll talk about that later. But anyways, I'm just trimming some of this extra skin off of the chicken, and I left some of these extra little clips in of Carter rolling around because I thought that it was super funny, and I want to look back on these days of rushing around in the kitchen with him just rolling around and smacking me from behind and giggling, and I know I'm gonna miss these days so much. So next you'll want to take 1.5 pounds of baby potatoes. and cut them in halves or thirds if some of them are a little bit bigger. And then the recipe also calls for half of a yellow onion, but my husband wanted to eat this one with me and he really does not like onions, so I skipped that part for my recipe. I had started recording me putting all of the chicken into the pan that I was going to cook it in, but I didn't realize that my camera battery died in the middle of it, so here's the chicken already in the pan. Sorry I skipped that little clip, but I did get me adding in all of the potatoes, and this is where I was saying the pan is a little bit crowded, and in the picture of the recipe, it kind of looks like they maybe aren't quite so all on top of each other, so I either needed a bigger pan or I just needed to put like fewer potatoes and less chicken in there. So please ignore my messy oven and the random piece of tinfoil in there, but you're going to bake it at 400 degrees for about an hour, and at some point while that's baking, you'll want to go ahead and make your apple cider glaze that you're going to pour on top of it. For this glaze, you're going to add a cup of apple cider, 1.5 tablespoons of brown sugar, a tablespoon of cooking wine, and a teaspoon of grainy mustard. So the recipe says to whisk all of this together and bring it to a boil, and then just start to let it simmer for 5 to 10 minutes, and then you take it off of the heat. Did say that the glaze would thicken a lot once it was off the heat, but mine actually never thickened, so I don't know if I did something wrong, or maybe it just needs some flour or something like that in there to actually get it to thicken, but it still was really tasty just the way it was, so I wouldn't, skip the recipe just because I couldn't get the glaze to thicken. So here's what it looked like all finished, and I'm just pouring the glaze over it. And this is definitely a recipe that we're going to keep in the rotation for years to come. Okay, last but most certainly not least, we're gonna make pumpkin pancakes. So you'll start by mixing together your eggs, canola oil, buttermilk, pumpkin puree, and then the recipe calls for pumpkin pie extract, which sounds absolutely magical, but I could not find it at my local grocery store. So I just used a little bit of vanilla extract, and I don't think that it made a huge difference in the recipe. You'll want to whisk all of those wet ingredients together, and then you're going to add brown sugar, salt, baking soda, baking powder, flour, and pumpkin pie spice. I would just like to quickly acknowledge that at the beginning of this video, I definitely said that this was going to be posted on a Monday, and I normally do post my Motivation Monday videos on Mondays, but on Sunday night when this video was almost completely edited, my computer decided to shut down and never turn on again. I took it to Apple support, nothing worked, and so I completely lost this video and had to start over on a completely new laptop. So I guess we'll just say Happy Motivation Saturday. This recipe just made me want to bake all of the pumpkin spice things. I have probably hundreds of pumpkin flavored recipes saved on my Pinterest, and it's going to take me years to make them all and try them all, but this just really got me in the mood, so I think I'm going to start doing a lot more baking this season. But after you get it all mixed up, then you're going to, whatever is your method for making pancakes, if you scoop it with a spoon or pour it in or however you do it, you're just going to make them like normal pancakes. So this is obviously the easy part. And I decided to add chocolate chips to some of my pancakes, and I definitely preferred the ones that had chocolate chips in them. They were so much better. There are so many ways that you could top these pancakes,
and also they would be delicious to eat them as is if you wanted to. But you can put whipped cream on them and then sprinkle a little bit of pumpkin pie seasoning on top. Or you can go ahead and use what the recipe says, and they have you make a cinnamon pecan syrup, which is basically just maple syrup and cinnamon and then some toasted pecans kind of all put together in a pan. But I found pumpkin pie flavored syrup at Walmart, and so that's what I used instead of making that syrup because, you know, busy mom life, I don't have time to make syrup. So it was absolutely delicious, and I would highly recommend that you go to Walmart and find this syrup. But anyways, I really hope that you enjoyed this video and that it gave you some motivation for your week ahead and kind of got you into the fall spirit, and I hope that you'll subscribe and come back to watch my other fall videos.